Hello friends, in this presentation we are going to share with you a very powerful testimony, and we are going to actually embed this testimony in the story, a well-known story of the Prodigal Son. The testimony that we are going to share is about two sisters, but before we get into the testimony, we'll start recapping a little bit of that famous story of the Prodigal Son that will give us a little bit of a setting and a final outcome of what we want to share with you in this message. So the story of the Prodigal Son is found in the book of Luke chapter 15. There's where you find the lost sheep, the lost coin, and finally the parable of the lost son. And it starts like this. It says that there was a certain man that had two sons. And the young one said to the father, "I hope you die and give me the money." Is that what he said? Some people say, no, that's not what it says in the Bible. Well, you tell me. He's asking for the inheritance, for his inheritance. Now, when do you get the inheritance of your father? When the father dies. So this rude and arrogant youngster goes to the father and he says, "Man, you're eating so healthy that you're not dying, and I am actually tired of waiting for you to die. I can't wait no longer, so give me my money." And it's interesting because what an arrogance. In a way, he's just saying, "Daddy, you are actually living too long. My life is flying by. I'm still young. I've got so many things that I want to do, and I'm running out of time just because you're not dying. I can't get the money." Now look at that type of individual. Now, friends, the father then answers and says, "You arrogant son, I'm not going to give you anything. You're off here, and from now on, when I get to church with your brother and they ask me, 'Where is your other son?' I'll say, 'I've got no more sons but the one that is here with me.'" Is that what the father said? No, he didn't. Maybe the father said, "Your money? I'm not going to give you your money. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to give it to the church. So then the church can start aged care facility and a children's home, etc. But I'm not going to give you anything because you're such an arrogant boy." Is that what the father said? No, he didn't. That boy didn't have it together. You can actually tell that boy hasn't grown up from a teenage stage of mind. He's all selfish, all for himself, and the father that is not stupid, he knows about it. He knows about it. So I'm going to ask you a question. Though the father knew that boy was going to waste that money, he might not know where or in which places. He didn't know if he was going to go into prostitutes or drugs or alcohol or whatever. What he knew is that he was going to get that money, he was going to go to the big city, and he was going to spend it all. The details he did not know, but he knew he was going to spend it. So my question to you is this: who gave the money to the son? The father. And I'm pausing here because that concept is astronomical. That concept is amazingly complex, solemn, big. The father that knew that son was going to waste it did not stop him. That father that knew that the son was missing a screw here of maturity, that same father, when he saw that the son was going anyway, he was going to leave the farm anyhow, and he could not stop him at all, he gave him the money. What a lesson for us fathers and mothers. We are trying to save our children. And the work of saving our children is not our work, but rather God's work. We get very disappointed when our children take on ways that we do not agree with. When our children take on ways that are contrary to their upbringing. When our children choose to actually go opposite to the ways of God, opposite to the ways of good judgment. You can see it coming. They are going to get hit against the wall. You can see it coming. Question: who gave the money to the son? The father. The father. What a lesson. I always ask this question. Can you tell me the name of the angel that grabbed hold of the hand of Eve in the Garden of Eden to prevent her from eating from the fruit that was going to bring calamity to this world? What was the name of the angel? It's a tricky question. There was no angel sent. You meant to tell me that God knew that by eating of that fruit, there is a child now being abused. There is a child now dying in a hospital because of leukemia. There is somebody dying of cancer. There is somebody being hit by a truck. There is somebody working in a construction site and about to have a mortal accident. And God did not send an angel to stop Eve. He didn't. Because the love of God is way beyond our understanding. It was the father that gave 1/3 of his fortune to the son. And why am I saying 1/3? Because he was not the oldest son. People say he gave him half. No, he didn't. In a Jewish mind, the older gets double. I want you to notice that. The older son or the firstborn son gets double portion. And the younger received 1/3 in this case. 1/3 of the money. And I'm just picturing in my head that type of father. A type of father that knows what is going to happen, nevertheless chooses to allow freedom based on his love to that son. Now, I'm just thinking that father giving him the money. And on the day in which he's packing up bags and he's heading to the city, the father goes and says, "Son, can I pray for you?" And the father prays for the son. And as he prays for the son, he looks at the son eye to eye and says, "And son, remember this. If you're ever in trouble, if for whatever reason you need to come back, this home is your home. I always love you no matter what. I will always embrace you no matter what. This home is a representation of my heart towards you and is always open to you." Friends, isn't that much better than sending our children that are going on the opposite direction and telling them, if you leave this house, never come back? If you don't show up at the appointed time at church, you might as well just leave this house, because this house is my house and whatever is done in my house has to be done according to what I say. Isn't that much better sending our children that are taking a decision that we disagree with on their way with our prayers and with an open heart, telling them that I love them, that I will always love him, and always will be welcome back inside my life? Now, in the Hebrew context, someone from the 13 years of age to about 19 years of age or 20 is the time of the development of the child where that child will make decisions. And those decisions will be within certain limits. So mom and dad set the limits. Sometimes the government sets the limits. You shall not drive unless you have a driver's license and you are a certain age. But there are certain limits. And within those limits, they are actually now allowed to make choices. Now, in the Hebrew mind, those choices, when your son or daughter come to you to ask you for your opinion, you give them your opinion, and they might actually choose something different. Still within the limits provided, but within those limits, that playground, if you will, they are actually allowed to choose differently. That's in the Hebrew context. But in the modern context, we feel disappointed. Why did you come? Why did you come to ask for my counsel, and then I share it with you, and you go and you do the opposite? You are disregarding my authority. You're disregarding me. That's because we don't understand that time age from 13 to 20 is a time in which, within limits, they are finding their way through by making mistakes also, of course. And if we don't allow that time, when the limits are being removed and they are not under your authority anymore, we haven't taught them to make wise decisions. So this father could not hold him any longer, gives him the money that he's going to waste, and he sends him with his blessing, with his open heart, and with a prayer. If you ever need it, come back home. Sure enough, he takes all that money, gets to the city, and he does absolutely everything that a person that thinks that only has 1 year to live is going to do. He just wasted. Wasted in girls, wasted in drinks, wasted in whatever it is that young people are wasting their talents and their money on, and wasting precious time, whatever it was, to a point in which he ended up feeding the pigs. And that is very significant. That's a way that Jesus had to tell us that he went to the bottom, because feeding the pigs in the Jewish context was the bottom of the bottom. He just gone to the bottom of the pit. He was there. And then it says this: but when among the pigs, when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? Notice what it says here. He came to himself. In other versions say he came to his senses. Friends, if he came to his senses, how was he before? Not with his senses. If he came to himself, he was not himself. Some people do things to us, and we need to recognize what Jesus recognized from that cross. Father, forgive them, because they are not within themselves. They haven't come to their senses. They don't know what they're doing. Do you think that people are going to kneel down before Jesus when he comes to gather his children out of fear? No. They're going to kneel down because at that point, and for many will be late, the door will be closed. The door of time will be closed. And at that point, they will come to their senses and they will realize, how many of those that are coming in will have everything, and I am perishing here for my own stupidity. They will come to their senses. But those that are currently living a life away from Jesus, friends, they are not in their senses. I'm not saying that to excuse their behavior towards you, and I'm not saying that to excuse their behavior at all. I'm saying that they are not doing it because they are in their senses. They are out of themselves. And that's where the enemy wants to keep them out of themselves, out of their logical reasoning. Look at this boy. He says, how many of the servants are being fed? I am here starving. So he actually stands up He says that he arose and came to his, he arose and he decided that he was going to go to the father. So he worked out a strategy. He said, Father, when I get to my father, I'm going to say to him the following. Notice, it's a 3-stage strategy this boy had when he was going to come back to his father. He was going to say to the father the following. Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. Second point, I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Third point, make me like one of your servants. So, again, first point, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am not worthy. Second point, I am not worthy to be called your son. Third point, make me as one of your servants. So this guy arises and starts heading to the house of his father. Why? He came to his senses. Who witnessed to that boy in the pig's pen? The pigs? No. The Holy Spirit. And what is the Holy Spirit and the angels of God around the ear of that boy, that prodigal boy that is wasting everything? What are they doing there? Imagine the evil angel that is keeping him down on the ground comes back from lunch and he sees a few angels of God whispering in this guy's ear saying, get up, go to your father, giving him understanding. And the evil angel says, what are you guys doing here? He hasn't called for you. And the angels smiled and said, yeah, but we got a father praying. We're answering the father's prayer. Are you praying for your children? Are you praying for the children without resentment because they have actually made decisions against your will and against your counsel? This guy gets up. He has his strategy, the 3-point strategy, and he's heading home. And he says that the father sees him at a distance. The father sees him at a distance. He says, when he was still a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. Friends, this guy just left the pig's pen. He was a stinky man. Hadn't had a shower for a long time. The father sees him at a distance because love sees at a distance. And he runs towards him. He grabs his hands around him. He kisses him. And he assures him that he is welcome. And then he is about to say his strategy. The son said to him, notice, number 1, Father, I have sinned. He comes. I have sinned against heaven and against your sight. Number 2, I am no longer worthy to be called your son. So what should we expect? The number 3, I am no longer worthy to be called your son. So number 3 was, make me as one of your servants. But the Bible tells us that at that point, the father stops him and he doesn't let him finish or start point 3. He says, but the father said to his servants, bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet, and bring the fatted calf here and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and he is found. And they began to be happy and merry. He looked at all the servants, the father, and he wanted to make sure that everybody understood that the one that had come, it wasn't a servant. The one that had come, it wasn't a second-class citizen. The one that came with all those rags, with all that smell from the pigs, that one was his son. No attachments. He put a robe around him. He covered him, and a ring in his hands, and he embraced him. What a wonderful thing to always leave the door open for the prodigals, isn't it? Now, I'm going to tell this story. And after this story, we're just going to finish off with something that happened after in the story of the prodigal son. This is the story of two sisters. This is a photo of 2011. Do they look like sisters? Some people say yes, and then they look closer and they said no. Well, they are sisters. However, they are not sisters from the same mother, neither sisters from the same father. They were both adopted. They were both adopted into the same family. That family already had an adopted son, and then adopted one of them, Veronica, which is the one on your right. Now, the guy there with the beanie and the Jamaican beanie, I don't know what he's doing there. It was just in the picture. Okay? And then adopted the other one from a different area. Okay? So these two grew up as sisters. Now, this one here, her name is Veronica. And if it wasn't my wife, I will marry her. She is the most beautiful Chilean in the southern hemisphere, and for sure, when she goes to the northern hemisphere, she becomes the most beautiful Chilean in the northern hemisphere too. Okay? She was adopted into a family at the age of 2 years and about 5 to 8 months old. Okay? She grew up in a family up till that age. She must have been in that photo about 2 or so, 2 and a bit, 2.5. And there were other brothers and sisters, an older sister, which was the firstborn, Anita, then a boy, Ricardo, then Viviana, the third girl, then a fourth boy, which is called Eduardo. At that point, mom already had stage 4 cancer, had already spread by the delivery of the fourth boy. My girl was the fifth one, was the little one in the picture. She grew up in mom's uterus with a tumor growing in the same place. Can you imagine that? King David says that he was conceived in sin. Well, look at that image. You have a baby, you have the placenta, and you have a tumor growing there at the same time. It is already an unsafe place for that baby. And that baby was born, and mom almost died then at the delivery point. But she didn't. She actually lasted a few more years, 2.5 years after. This is a photo taken when they actually left church one day. And that's the last photo that the family has. And then she died. And when she died, the father was left at the age of 30 or so with 5 children in Chile. No social security there, no pension, nothing like that. Either you work and eat, or you don't work and you don't eat and your family starves. So one of the boys, the older boy, actually almost grew up in the streets. The 2 girls were sent to an auntie up north. The boy, the second youngest boy, was sent with another family member. And then he was left with the little one. And the little one was offered into adoption and was adopted into a family. Now, we actually have the photo of the day when she arrived to that house. This is the actual day when she arrived at the house that it was going to be her home for many years. The boy there, his name is Marcus, and Marcus was also adopted into the same family. Veronica has images of crying and getting hold of her daddy's leg. She remembers a very tall man, and she was grabbing the leg and crying, "Daddy, don't leave me here. Daddy, don't leave me here." And from the family, we know that for at least 2 weeks, she will cry all the time. That little girl was crying all the time. And friends, because I don't want to give any advertising extra to the devil. I would just say the following, that this girl grew up but had to go through experiences that a little girl should never have to go through. And because there is enough evil in this world for you to have a piece of that cake, and for me to have a piece of that cake, I will just say that Veronica had definitely a piece of that cake of evil that everybody of us have to eat and taste because we are born in this earth. She's gone through experiences that, as I said, a young girl and a young woman should never have gone through. But besides all that, the Lord actually did such a miracle thing in her. And believe it or not, she actually fell in love with a very proud Spaniard that met her. Unbelievable. I cannot understand how much blessings the Lord has bestowed upon me with this very happy Chilean. And I'm saying happy Chilean because despite of her background, despite of all her suffering growing up, the Lord has healed her, and you cannot get rid of her smile from the face. Everybody says about Veronica, she has a beautiful smile, she's always smiling, she appears to be always happy. And I know her privately, and she is the motivator, the encourager of my life. We actually have 3 children. Now the photo that I'm going to show you now is probably 6 years old or so. And I know that because my son doesn't look like that anymore. He's the one in the center. His name is Nicholas. He's actually as tall as me. He's 16 years old. And how much I wish to be 16 again. You know that age of 16 when you know it all? And then as you start growing older, you start knowing less and less. I just want to know more things, you know. So I said to my son, I wish I could be 16 again so I can know it all again. And then I've got my daughter Eva and my little daughter Amaya, but they don't look like that anymore. Eva is a young woman now, 14, and Amaya is really catching up and growing tall now. We also have 2 foster children. In this presentation, I only have little Luki at the age of 2. When he came to our house, that was 2016. He's actually 6 now. That's little Luki. And we also have another one, another girl. Her name is Akayla, another blondie. And the Lord blessed us, and we were so happy of His blessings. And one day, my wife received a message on her email. Hi, my name is Ricardo. I'm your brother. I want to get to know you. You see, the older brother, the oldest of the boys, of the 2 boys, was a policeman in Chile. And he somehow found out about her, sent the email. My wife actually didn't even respond to that email, deleted it, and forgot about it. But she told me about it, and I said, why you didn't respond? I said, these people never wanted to know anything about me. They never actually pay attention to where I was. They never made an effort to actually search for me and find me. So now I'm fine. I've got my family. I've got you. I've got the children. I'm fine. Now, 6 months later, she received another email. And she deleted it again. Then my mom in Spain learned something about something happening in the internet where you can actually put photos. She called it Facebook. So she called me on the phone and said, hold on, you know the neighbor, Mary? I said, yep. Well, she has a son in the United States of America. The son is sending her photos of the children every week through something called Facebook. So you better get into that Facebook, the sooner the better, because I want to see photos of my children, of my children meaning my grandchildren. But of course, you know, as grandmothers, you know, once you have grandchildren, the children are not important anymore. So obviously I had a reputation. I actually denied myself. I'm not going to open a Facebook account. That goes against my principles. So I couldn't do it. So I got my wife to open one in her name. And so we started sending photos to my mom, to my brother, so my mom could actually see the children. And one day, while she was on Facebook, she received a message. Hi, My name is Ricardo. I am your brother. I wanted to get to know you. And she answered a very quick message back. Hi, yeah, I'm Veronica. I'm now living in Australia. I'm fine. I've got children. Thank you. I hope your family is fine. Very cold. But you know what? As they started going back and forth, all of a sudden another of the sisters got into Facebook and they started communicating, and then another one, and then the other one, and they started communicating. And I remember the day when my wife walked into the bedroom crying and said, I love these people. I said, why? And he said, because there's a story behind what I didn't know. They always tried to actually find her. For those 4 children, the baby was always missing. They're always trying, because the others, they just stayed within the family. But the baby was always missing. The family was always missing. The father actually remarried and had children of his own. And for them, the baby was almost missing. There's actually a story when Ricardo, the policeman, before he was a policeman, he went to a town called Curacaví, and he actually got for himself a girlfriend, and he was telling the girlfriend his story, and the girlfriend said, oh, you wouldn't be the brother of someone called Veronica. She has been adopted into a family here. That's my sister. And for years, Ricardo will actually escort my wife to school and back, but always at a distance, to the point in which my wife never knew that at a distance there was a little boy, older than her, but still a boy, maybe 16, 17, that will just go and follow her to the school and back. Until someone realized that there was a bit of a stalking happening, and they called the police, and they put a distance between him and the sister. Stories like this started softening the heart of my wife, realizing that there was an untold story, that somebody was always looking for her, trying to get her, trying to reunite her. That's like the same as God to us. There is an untold story of a God in heaven that is chasing you, that is trying to grab you, that is trying to get your attention, that wants to reveal to you that He has loved you always and He has never left you. And He's walking you to school and back, and to work and back at a distance, because He doesn't know how you will react to the truth. In 2010, for the first time, the family got together. They are in order there. There's Anne, Anita, Ricardo, the policeman, Viviana, Eduardo, and my wife. That's a photo in Chile in 2010. And it was so glorious. My wife will call me, and I said, man, what time is in Chile now? I said, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I said, wow, are you still up? I said, oh, we've been up. We've been talking, we've been catching up, and it's, friends, it's amazing. When they speak through Skype, through video conference, they have the same actions, the same sense of humor. They haven't grown up together, and you can tell they're brothers and sisters. It's just unbelievable. My wife said this to them: I want to be the answer to prayer to my mom. And they said, what do you mean by that? I said, well, I have children of my own. And I'm just wondering, if I die now, what will be the prayer that I will send up to heaven? I will pray for my children, because probably my little girl will forget about me, and the others will start having foggy memories of me. I will want to pray that when I rise up in the resurrection, my children will be there. I want to be the answer to my mom's prayer. And then she said, I want to see my dad. And they said, oh, You know, you have to understand that your dad is a very rough man. He's a very serious man. He just remarried. He has his own children. And said, I want to see him. To give him a hug and to let him know that I don't have any resentment whatsoever against him. Because all things will work together for good. And the Lord has blessed me enormously. And so she did. She actually saw the father, gave him a hug. That man was stiff as a stick, will not move. And then she came back. And as she came back, she was telling all the story to the sister, Teresa. Teresa was on the phone. She lives in Sydney. My wife and I will live in the state of Victoria, near Melbourne. So she was on the phone and saying, "Oh, sis, I'm so happy for you. That piece of the puzzle in your mind has been placed there. I'm so happy and I'm so jealous, sis." I said, "Why?" I said, "Because I've got no one." "Oh, Teresa, don't say that. You have me." I said, "I know that, sis, but I've got no one. Not one." Because in her mind, she still remembers the day in which, at the age of 6 years of age, she was grabbing the hand of a lady that she thought it was a half-cousin of hers, as they were actually putting down the coffin of her mother on top of the coffin of her dad that had passed away 3 years before. So both of them were doctors living down south in Chile. Both of them doctors. When Teresa was the age of 3, the father died. When Teresa was the age 6, the mother, also the doctor, died. And this half-sister, half-family, half-relative of hers placed her in a home for adoption, the same home that my wife was being taken into. And that's how they grew up as sisters. And that was the story that we knew of Teresa. That was the story that Teresa knew about herself. And because I don't want to give any advertising to the devil, let's say that these two girls, Teresa and Veronica, they had to go through such situations or circumstances that a little girl and a young girl should never have gone through. But because we live in the world that we're living in, and there is enough evil in this world for you to have a piece of that cake, and for them to have theirs, and for myself to have mine, we'll just say it that way. But many of the struggles that Teresa had against God and against her struggles in different areas of her life were all pointing back to the fact that a God in heaven took away the parents, took away the protections, and things happened to her because there was a God in heaven that in her recollection did not care. Many times when she will come and visit, we will kneel down and pray with the children, and she struggled to join us, and she will kneel down only for the sake of the children. Not because she actually felt it. She was angry with God. She was in enmity with God because of how can you love a God that has taken your parents and then has allowed all those events to happen to you that is still haunting you to this day. And Teresa says to Veronica, now the only one that I can think of is that half relative of mine. Do you reckon that your brother the policeman will be able to maybe find her? And maybe I can get her mobile and give her a call. And Veronica said, okay, I'll tell my brother, Ricardo. Well, so the brother in Santiago of Chile sends message to a group of policemen down south, and these 2 policemen knocked at the door of the person. And the person opens the door and the policeman said to her, there is somebody in Australia that wants to get in contact with you. This lady goes, Australia? I don't know anyone in Australia. And then she stops and she goes, Teresa. Has to be Teresa. So she gave them the number, the mobile number. And Teresa was all excited and said to my wife, oh, I'm going to call tonight. And my wife was saying, all right, let me know how it goes. Call me 15 minutes later. Once you finished, just let me know how it went. And Teresa was nervous and she was saying, oh, I'm so nervous, sis. It's the only person that I know, but it's just a little bit of missing puzzle piece in the past. And she called. And about half an hour later, the phone rings. And my wife grabs the phone, and the only thing that I can hear is, all right, calm down. All right, please, don't cry, calm down. Teresa, please, calm down, please. Then I did whatever the thing that a husband will do in a situation like that. I went to the office next to my wife and I put my ear next to the phone so I can listen too and figured out what was happening. Well, Teresa had called that lady. That lady was so happy to listen to Teresa. Oh, Teresa, so many times I prayed for you and so many times wondering, where will she be? Where will she be now? And they started to catching up for about 10 minutes. And after the 10 minutes, this lady from Chile goes and says the following. I haven't seen your mother for a while. They told me she's been sick. And Teresa goes, oh, well. She thought for a minute and she's thinking, maybe this lady is just getting a bit too old and she's forgetting who she's talking to. And she goes, well, I don't understand what you just said. You realize that I'm Teresa and I'm an orphan and I was holding your hands when they put my mom down on the ground and my father died before that. And she says, oh, Teresa, nobody told you. They told me what? Your parents are alive. They are not together, but they're actually alive. I said, what? Yes. The ones that you buried were not your parents. Your parents are alive still today. They're elderly now. They don't live together. They live up in the mountains. And she told her the story. The mother of Teresa fell pregnant out of wedlock. And she was a deaf Mapuche Indian in the mountains of South Chile. And she decided to move down the valley into town for fear of the repercussions of being pregnant out of wedlock. And she found a job early on in her pregnancy in a house of 2 doctors, husband and wife, that could not have children. As the months progressed and the tummy was showing, arrangements were made by the doctors to claim the child as their own, to register the child as their own, and to send the Indian back home without the child. Friends, they stole the baby and they registered the baby as their own, and they sent that Indian back home with no baby to the mountains. Then, 3 years later, the husband died. 3 years after, the wife died. And Teresa was placed into a whole roller coaster of experiences while he was and became adopted into a family. All of a sudden, whatever you think you are not. I thought I was an orphan. Now I'm not an orphan. I thought they were my parents. I thought I was still having nightmares of seeing my mom being laid down on the ground. And it's not even my mom. Where is God in all this? She struggled for a few weeks. She would call every day at random times. She was crying. And at the same time, a different sentiment was growing within her. At some point, my wife says, you need to go and see them. Oh, no, sister, I wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't be able to. Teresa, you need to go and see them. It's going to be good for you. It's going to be good for you. Sis, will you come with me? And Veronica said, I'll go with you. I'll go with you. And then the two sisters went to Chile. They got picked up by the policeman, Ricardo, and they were driven down to south of Chile on a journey to find Teresa's parents. Now, I'm just going to put this video. But before we press play for the video, I want you to notice that this girl is 44 years of age now, as she's arriving to see his dad for the first time. And after this video, we'll put another short video that continues with this sequence of a hug between this daughter and the father. The father learned later, many years ago, that he had a daughter. And I want you to watch carefully as we play the video. There she is. That's my wife with her. My brother-in-law is. That's the father. And the father says something. ¿Por qué has tardado tanto? Meaning, why have you taken so long? Why have you taken so long? This other video is just a continuation. I want you to behold the hug, the embrace of this daughter. Those tears, I know, Teresa, those tears have a lot of suffering for 44 years. He said, why have you taken so long? Somebody, that friend of the family, that half relative that was also on that video, she went to him and told him that your daughter has been found and she's coming. Now, she's in Australia and she's coming. Now, in the mind of this man in the mountains of Chile, this Indian in the mountains of Chile, Australia is a concept that is so foreign. It's somewhere north of Santiago. It's so foreign. So what he did, he went to the chook pen, he killed a chicken, and he cooked up a chicken because the daughter was coming. The very next day, or 2 days later, he went to the chicken pen and killed a chicken and cooked up a chicken because the daughter was coming. Now, hopefully, he realized that the daughter was going to take a little bit longer before he got rid of all the chickens. But he said, why have you taken so long? The hope of a father to embrace a daughter. He learned about that daughter soon after she was born, when the mother came back to the mountains. But what could he do against two doctors? He could not read. He couldn't speak Spanish properly. He could only speak Indian. And that daughter was gone, but now was back. And the daughter gave him a souvenir, as you can see there, Australian hat there. And they had a good time. And then he came the next day. Now, there is a lady. This lady is a Mapuche Indian. She has suffered a lot. She is deaf, speaks a little bit of Mapuchean language, but obviously because she's deaf, she has very limited communication skills. She cannot read, she cannot write. Can you imagine the upbringing of that girl, the deaf lady, in a world as cruel as ours, when you can scream and nobody will listen, when you can run, be caught, and suffer and nobody will defend you? When your land that has been given to you by your mom and your dad is taken away by some other people and you are left homeless. When you have a child and they take away your child and they take away absolutely everything, I cannot even imagine what that woman has gone through. Despite all that, every weekend she walks over the hills to a little church to praise God. And every morning, before he goes on his daily routine, he developed for many, many years a tradition. She will go down that little section there, what you can see there in the photo. Then she will climb up a little hill, because that's where the gravel road will take vehicles to the little village where she lives. And every morning, for many, many years, in fact, for 44 years, that mother will walk up that little hill, and from there, she will look down the gravel road. If you would have asked the neighbors, why would she do that? Everybody knew. She told in her way to everyone, one day, God is going to bring my daughter through that road. I want you to notice, because neither my wife, neither my brother-in-law, the policeman, neither Teresa knew about this routine. They actually happened to arrive on that road at the same moment when she is about to do her routine. I want you to see it as we pray, as we press play now. She's about to climb up, and now that friend of the family tells her that your daughter is here. The one that you hear is my wife crying too. And then, is that my daughter? Is that my daughter? Yes, she is. That's your daughter. And then she embraces. And then she realizes that she's been recorded. And I want you to notice something. She says, she comes from here. She comes from here. Look. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Daughter and mother together in an amazing embrace. In an absolutely amazing embrace. It's just amazing how the way Teresa came back to Australia. The traffic in the M5 is so terrible in the mornings, and one day she calls after her trip. Calls Veronica and says, "How you doing, sis?" I said, "Oh, Teresa, where are you?" "I'm stuck here in the traffic, in the M5. But you know what? I'm just calling you to tell you that I'm so happy. And God is so good to me. God is so good to me. He loves me so much." In the story of the prodigal son, there is an older brother. That older brother receives double. He says his older brother was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, "Your brother has come, and because he has received him safe and sound, your father has killed the fatted calf." But notice what the older brother did. He says that he was angry and will not go in. Therefore his father came out and pleaded with him. There was a festival, there was a celebration, there was a gathering together of all the family. All the family, all the members of the family of that father, they were gathering together inside the house. Inside the house. But the brother was angry, and he will not come in, despite the fact that the father was pleading and pleading and pleading. Friend, there is a celebration that is about to happen in heaven. There is a house prepared for you. There is a supper, a dinner, a great celebration, and everybody is invited. And God, our Father, is pleading. But down here, there are many that are angry and upset with their brothers. There are many that are angry and upset with their sisters. There are many that are angry and upset with the ones that wronged them. There are many that are angry and upset and resentful because of the hurt that somebody has perpetrated against them. There are many people that cannot forgive. There are many people that will hold grudges against others. There are many people that hold resentment. And I'm here to tell you now that the angry brother did not come into the house. What are you talking about, Oscar? I am following the scriptures. I am eating right. I'm even eating soy yogurt rather than dairy yogurt. How about that? Doesn't that count for anything? My response to that is this, friends. The angry brother did not come in, and the angry brother does not come in. The father is pleading, and he's so looking forward to embrace you. Do you think for a minute that as emotional as the embrace from Teresa and Mom and Dad has been, that this has anything to compare to the embrace that your loving Father wants to give you? Nothing to compare. Do you want to miss that one? Do you really want to miss that one? The angry brother does not come in. Who are you angry with? Who hurts you? Who hurt you so much that you prepare to risk and miss the embrace of God and the celebration in the house that He has prepared for you? Is it worth it to hold things against that person that wronged you and hurt you? And I'm not disregarding the hurt. I'm saying this, and I'm finishing with this. The angry brother does not come in. God is pleading with you to come. Thank you, and blessings to you all.